Hi, so today we have a new mouthpiece to try out. This is the JSV2 mouthpiece sold by Houghton Horns, and it is the Sebastian Vera signature mouthpiece. Sebastian and I used to play in a trombone quartet back in the day, and he's since gone on to great things. He's principal of the Pittsburgh Opera. He's subbed with orchestras like Detroit and Cleveland and Seattle, I believe, among many others. And he runs the Third Coast Trombone Retreat as well as the Third Coast Trombone Retreat podcast with Nick Schwartz. He does some really amazing things. I highly suggest that you check out his summer camp and his podcast. So I love the way this mouthpiece looks. That's the first thing. The white kind of ivory look on it is really unique and really special. It's just a beautiful looking mouthpiece. That's the very first thing. If I had to guess, I would say that these are made by Bob Reeves Brass. I don't know that particularly, but the design resembles the Mercury blank just enough. And I know he's the podcast world. They've kind of worked together. So my thought is that these are made by Bob Reeves Brass. And, that'll be either confirmed or denied, or it really doesn't matter because the mouthpiece is the mouthpiece. When I bought one, I decided to pick the JSV. It's not really focusing very well, but the JSV2, because I like a little bit more weight on the 5G style mouthpieces. It's a 5G style rim as well, and it feels very much like a Bach, but better to me in a lot of ways. I really like the way that this mouthpiece sounds. Let's give it a little test out. I like to test various mouthpieces on Bolero, so let's see how that feels. Try it again. So first impression for this, besides missing the first note, that's really on me, is that this is a very compact and bright mouthpiece. It feels like it has a ton of core in the sound, and it doesn't feel especially wide, but it feels very direct. I noticed this the other day. I was playing in Geffen Hall where the New York Philharmonic plays, and I had my normal mouthpiece, Li Brass 550E, with me, and I decided to bring the JSV2 along to kind of test out what they were like in different acoustics. The Long Island Brass mouthpiece, which is the one I normally use, has a wide, almost diffuse sound in comparison, but very warm, and one that's a sound that I really enjoy working with. The JSV2 is such a compact and really crisp and really core-based sound that the people next to me thought that it was really quite a nice fit for a large concert hall, and I could see that being the case. A lot of my playing is in chamber music and solo music where I'm close to the audience, so I tend to favor mouthpieces that have a really warm sound that is very close to the audience, whereas this mouthpiece would be a really great mouthpiece for kind of orchestral playing. I think it might be clear on something like Gazza Ladra, so let me try a little bit of that excerpt on both mouthpieces back to back, and you'll be able to hear kind of the crispness of the articulation. And when I compare that with my Long Island Brass 550E, my normal mouthpiece, you might notice a little bit of difference in kind of the core and the width of the sound. like there's a little bit more tail to the sound, a little bit more roundness to the sound with this mouthpiece. But for a bigger concert hall, the clarity of this and really reaching the back row with that core of sound could be a really desirable option. The other mouthpiece I almost always keep with me is Doug Elliott's XTG G8 104 rim mouthpiece that he sent me some months back. I found this to be a really great chamber and solo piece, and it has the core, but it can be really interesting to hear how it sounds side by side with these other two mouthpieces. So here's Gazza Ladra one more time to kind of compare the Doug Elliot setup. Again, with the Doug Elliot setup, it feels very much like it's geared towards show playing and really chamber style playing. Like, this is my number one like brass quintet mouthpiece. I can see the JSV2 mouthpiece being really good for principal, trombone, and orchestra, and the Long Island 550 I think is still my go-to mouthpiece for my everyday playing. Let's compare them on a couple other quick excerpts, and let me just do a little bit of Saint-Saens 3, and we'll see how kind of the really soft and melodic playing reacts on these mouthpieces. So I feel very slotted on this mouthpiece. Like the notes, they just really want to jump instantaneously from one to the other. It maybe feels a little bit less vocal in its affectations, but I have a theory about that I'll share in a minute. Let me try the same thing on my Long Island brass mouthpiece to see what that does for the sound for me. So with the Long Island Brass 550E, I feel a little bit more vocal in my inflection from note to note. It feels a little bit more like it smoothly transitions in and out, which again is a personal preference and works best for kind of my chop style and the things I'm looking for in my career. Let's also try the same thing on the Doug Elliot mouthpiece, just to see what it's like as a baseline comparison. Again, this feels like a very middle ground comparison between the two mouthpieces. They both do some things really well. Let's test out some range stuff. So let's go from the low range to the high range and like the arpeggios that I'm pretty used to. Again, this mouthpiece feels very good going through the registers. Everything feels locked in and those rips feel very easy. Let's see how they feel on my normal mouthpiece. What's kind of cool is that the JSV kind of feels like it locks in a little bit better on those high notes. I felt like I was just a touch more stable. So that was pretty cool to see. Let me try it again on the Doug Elliot mouthpiece. Again, very easy. These three mouthpieces, they all do really wonderful things, which is why I like having them around. They're three of my favorite mouthpieces to play on out of all of them, so they all do the things pretty well, which is nice. With the Doug Elliot, I've mentioned this before in some videos, but I feel like when I get back down to the low range from those rips, it just feels like it takes a second to open up in the bigger orchestral way. But for like a show or a brass quintet where you're mostly playing in that mid-range to mid-high range and things need to be very crisp and clear and transparent at the same time, the Doug Elliot is my choice for that. I think for that kind of orchestral-based approach, when you're in a large hall and you really need to reach the back, I do like the JSV a lot. Let me just try out some David on this one really quickly, because I'm kind of curious what that's like with kind of the orchestral concerto style articulations. So again, this sound, while it's really clear and really crisp and reaches the back of the hall, feels a little bit more like, even though it slots really well, moving from slot to slot, it feels like it just takes me a second to find the exact buzzing point on where I want to be for the mouthpiece. Could just be my unfamiliarity with it. Let's see if that kind of clears it up a little bit. That does clear it up a little bit. My buzz matching where I want to be with it is definitely a factor. Let me try the same thing on my Long Island brass, because to me, for my own personal approach to playing, it feels like maybe a little bit bright, a little bit edgy when I kind of push that dynamic. Let's try the same thing on my LI brass. Yep, this feels a little bit more like home. I've been playing on it a lot, and it has a very rounded, comfortable rim. Whereas the JSV, it's still comfortable, but it's a much sharper rim. It definitely feels like it keeps your chops locked into place a lot better. So, having known Sebastian for some time and knowing his playing, he is a very, very, very strong lyrical player. It's just really big sound, really singing approach. Just everything just feels effortless when it comes to melody. And that's always something I've really admired about his playing. It makes sense to me that this mouthpiece feels like it really locks articulations into place. And I think that for such a broad, lyrical, melodic, beautiful sound, having that to kind of balance out and make sure that everything is just as crisp and the core is where you want it to be is, we look for things that help us cover all the bases. And that's not to say that Sebastian can't articulate or anything else like that. Please don't take it the wrong way. It's just that the sound has always just been so big, so pure, so beautiful from the first thing that I could see why this helps just engage in a slightly different way. My own sound isn't like that. I don't feel like I'm as beautiful or melodic as a player naturally as Sebastian has been. But my articulations have always kind of been on point. So with this mouthpiece, my Long Island brass, it feels like it helps mitigate that a little bit and gives me a little bit of the warmer sound that I think of when I want to sound like Sebastian, to be honest. Yep, so there you have it. JSV2, great mouthpiece, really great for big halls, really great for orchestral style, really great if you're naturally melodic and have a really big natural sound, and I highly recommend picking them up and trying them out. All right, thanks for watching.